Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the director changes. My name is Simon Fenyani, and I'll be the facilitator of the program. And we hope today's webinar will be thought-provoking, and that each of our participants gain new knowledge. Today's webinar will be recorded and it will be made available on the CIPC website. We will have questions and answer session after the presentation. You are welcome to post questions on the chat function of MS Teams during the presentation. We posted a link on the chat function for a short survey for feedback regarding this webinar. After the webinar, it will also be emailed to you. Please complete the survey. Now, just a notice, and it's very important. Microphones will be switched off during the webinar to prevent background noises during the webinar. Should you ask a question during the question and answer session, raise your hand and you will be allowed to unmute your microphone to ask your question. Please mute it again after asking your questions. Video cameras will be switched off. It draws attention to you instead of focusing on the presenter. It also uses more data during the webinar and influence the quality of the broadcast. So now, without a waste of time, let's just look into the introduction. CIPC was brought into existence. CIPC is Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, in short is CIPC. It was brought into existence by the Companies Act of 2008. In terms of Section 185, subsection 1 of the Companies Act, the Commission is established as a juristic person to function as an organ of state within the public administration, but as an institution outside the public service. So CIPC is divided into two businesses. Under businesses, we have corporate regulation, that is companies, cooperatives, and close corporation. And the other one is intellectual property. Then under intellectual property, we have 4 domains, that is patents, designs, trademarks, and copyright. Now let's, in short, look at the objectives of CIPC. What do we do in CIPC? We register companies. We have non- and profit companies. We also register cooperatives and all forms of intellectual property rights. As I mentioned, that we have 4 domains of intellectual property in South Africa. That is your patents, trademarks, designs, and copyright. So we also keep the disclosure of information on our registers. For in case if you want to request the information, you can log on our website, and then you on inquiries, then you can request the information. We also do enforcement of the relevant legislation. As you know, we administer different legislations, your companies, your patents, your trademarks, and so forth. So we also do enforcement. We are not only the post office where we just register applications or companies, and then we also do regulatory. So we do promotion of education and awareness of company and intellectual property law. So what we do, we also do information sessions. We inform our customers on our product and services. We inform our customers on compliance issues and all other things that are in CIPC. We also issue licensing of business rescue practitioners. We monitor compliance with contraventions of financial reporting standard and making a recommendation thereto. We also report, research, and advise the Minister on the matters of national policy relating to companies and intellectual property law. So now our programs for today, as I indicated, that we'll be talking about the director changes. And then I'll now introduce our speaker for today, and then it's Mr. Thomas Levete. And then from there, after we'll go into questions and answers, and then we close the session. Thank you.
A very good morning to everyone. My name is Thomas Levete. I'll do this webinar on the director changes. Just to kick off here, CIPC is mandated as by Companies Act to perform some of the functions based on the Companies Act. So you will see here I have selected some of the sections that we normally have to comply with on a daily basis when performing our functions in the office, from section 66 to section 78 of Companies Act. But we will not focus on each and every section. We will only focus on the ones that deal with the director changes. Firstly, if you look at section 70, we have this one that deal with the vacancies on the board. So the vacancies can arise on the board of a company due to various reasons. It can be the director resigns, or the director dies, or the director is incapacitated, which means that that person will not be able to perform the functions of a director and is unlikely to regain that capacity within a reasonable time. So another one can be the director becomes ineligible or disqualified in terms of section 69, or the director is removed by either the shareholders, the board of directors, or by the court. Or sometimes the vacancy may arise because the director's fixed term of office has expired as per the company's MOI. So these are some of the reasons that may lead to the vacancies within the board of a company. And then we can also move to section 71 that deal with the removal of directors, whereby a director may be removed by an ordinary resolution adopted at a shareholders meeting of the persons entitled to exercise voting rights. So before the shareholders of a company may decide to remove a director, the affected director must be given a notice of the meeting and the resolution so that he or she can be able to prepare a response. And then the director must also be afforded a reasonable opportunity to make a presentation in person or through representation before the resolution is put to a vote. And then we also have section 74 that deals with the acting other than at a meeting. That happens in a situation whereby the decision that could have been voted on at a meeting of the board of that company may instead be adopted by written consent of the majority of the directors, given in person or by electronic communication, provided that each and every director has received notice of the matter to be decided. So the decision that can be taken then is of the same effect as if it has been approved by voting at a meeting. And then we also have the regulation number 39 that deals with the directors and register of persons disqualified from serving as directors. In this case, a notice that a person has resigned or director has been appointed as required by Section 70, subsection 6, must be filed in Form COR 39 within 10 business days after the appointment or the resignation of a director. So here now you will see we have got 3 channels that you may opt whenever you want to transact with CIPC. Then you may decide to submit your application manually, where you will send the document to manual cr39@cipc.co.za, or you can opt to transact on e-services, where the documents will be sent to e-services email address as reflected on the screen, or you can upload the documents on our website. Moving forward, the supporting documents that will be required for both manual and e-services transaction will be the minutes of the meeting or the resolution to confirm the change of directors. It can also be done through round-robin resolution or minutes of the meeting. The minutes of the meeting must be signed by all directors as required by practice note number 21. And then we will also need the certified ID copies of all those directors who are affected by the change. And then when you do the manual submission, you will also have to attach the certified ID copy of the applicant, that is the owner of the customer code that you have reflected on the form. So in case of the deceased director, we will require the death certificate to prove that the person is no more. Then I have also attached the form so that you can fully understand what is expected from you when you complete the form, because sometimes people complete the document incorrectly, and then that leads to the rejection of application. So you can see on top there, you will have to put the date, you will have to put the customer code, which is very much important, because if you don't put the customer code, the application will be rejected, because we need to communicate with you via the email address linked to that customer code once the application has been processed. Then you will also have to complete the name of the company, the registration number, and then in the first block, then those are the notes that you need to comply with. Then when you move to the next page, you will see the block with 1 up to 12. That is, you need to use the notes that appeared on the first block. And then don't forget to sign the document on the first page as well. So this is the manual application that you will have to complete and submit to manual cr39@cipc.co.za. Then the processing of manual application. Once we receive the application, we will allocate the tracking number in the office. It's different to the e-services where you get the tracking number online. So we will allocate the tracking number as I've indicated here, and then the documents will be placed in a box, and then that will be released at the end of the day and distributed to team members. And then from there, the application will be captured manually, which means that the changes that we have reflected, if you have appointed a new director, we'll capture that new director into the system. And then the outcome can be either the certificate or a query of application will be dispatched to the email address that is linked to customer code on the form. That is why I said it's very much important that you need to complete the customer code on the first page of CR39 manual document. So when moving to e-services transaction, this transaction is handled by the customer. All the changes are captured on the CIPC website by the client, and then from there, the customer will have to submit the application to CIPC for processing. And then after examining the application, the team will only approve or reject the application if it complies, or maybe there is a problem with the application, or maybe you have omitted to attach some of the expected documents. Then the application will be rejected, but you will get the reason why the application has been rejected so that you can be able to respond. So I've also indicated the steps on the website that you need to follow when you want to transact online. You'll open, when you visited the CIPC website, then you'll go to register as a customer, as I've indicated by the arrow. And then from there, you'll go to transact on top. You click there. And then the moment you click, you will get this screen, whereby now you will have to select what do you want to do. Then you will go to amend company director details. From there, you will get this page. That is where now you need to put the enterprise number. So the challenge that we normally have here, when you put the registration number, do not start with letter K, because the moment you put letter K, it will completely disrupt the logic of the registration number, and the system will not allow you to proceed. So you need to complete. If the company was registered in 2000, you will put 2000, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At the end, it will be 07, as appears on the next slide, just like this. This is how you need to complete the registration number without using the letter K. And then after that, you will have to go and click continue at the bottom of the screen. And then because here now you will see the system will give you the director, whereby you are expected now to complete the ID number of the first listed director. Then you will put the ID number there, and then you click continue. And then from there, if you want to add a new director, then you will click add new director, and then you proceed, and then you complete the details as required for that new director. And then you continue to complete up until this page, and then from there you click save, which means that now the person has been appointed online. So the moment you click the save button, CIPC will send you the document, the CR39 document with the tracking number on top. That is the form that you need to sign. And then you attach the supporting documents like the minutes of the meeting or the resolution, the certified ID copies of all those directors who are affected by the change. And then you email the full package in a PDF format to eservicescr39@cipc.co.za. And then you will email that document to that email. And then once we receive it, and then we are going to check and see if you have complied with all the requirements. And then if everything is fine, then the application will be approved. If maybe something is missing, then it will be rejected, and then you will be notified the reasons why it was rejected. Then we come to the removal of a director. As I've indicated in the first slide there, the removal and resignation is not the same thing in terms of Companies Act. I think there is a confusion with regard to these two terms. When people submit the application, the removal must be in accordance with Section 71 of Companies Act. Remember that a removal can be done for various reasons, like theft, fraud, forgery, neglecting the functions of a director. But when it comes to resignation, resignation happens voluntarily due to personal reasons, and then the director decided to hand over the resignation letter to the company so that the company can file necessary documents to CIPC so that that person can be recorded as a resigned director. So it is not the same as a removal, because the removal need to comply with Section 71 of Companies Act. As I have indicated before, that the person who need to be removed need to be notified beforehand so that he can be able to prepare a response on the date of the meeting. And then, but when it comes to resignation, then you don't have to follow this Section 71 of Companies Act. So the application, the CR39 and resolution or minutes of the meeting, they must have the same information. And then you don't have to complete a removal on resolution, but on the form you have indicated resignation or vice versa. So if the person has resigned, it must show on the form is resigned, and then the resolution must also talk about resignation. And then a notice must be sent to the affected director with reasons for removal. This I've already touched on. Then you can also refer to the practice notice number 74 of 2018 that is available on our website to get more details with regard to the removal. And then when we move to the removal of an authorized director, that is the situation whereby the company picked up that there is a director who has been appointed and then they don't have a knowledge of that appointment. Then they have got to submit COR 168 within 10 business days to object that filing so that the unauthorized director can be removed from the CIPC records. So if they have picked up the appointment of that person after the expiry of 10 days, then they will have to submit COR 39 application. But on the form where you need to put the status of a director, whether it's resigned, appointment, deceased, or blah, blah, then what you have to complete there, you will complete remove unauthorized appointment. Then that removal will show that this one is not supposed to comply with section 71, since this was an unlawful appointment. So for an unlawful appointment, we cannot expect you to call a person to the meeting whereby you are going to give the reasons why you want to remove that person. So you will only submit COR 39 application form and then indicate that this is an unauthorized appointment. And then you will also need to provide the resolution signed by the directors objecting such appointment, and then together with their certified ID copies. And then such director who was not authorized to be appointed then will be removed from CIPC records. Then let's move to the resignation appointment of a director. I think we have already touched this one when we start with the presentation, whereby the vacancies arises on the board of directors due to various reasons like resignation, incapacitated, death of a director, the expiry of term of office as required by Memorandum of Incorporation. So here, the company must file COR 39 application within 10 business days after a director is appointed or resigned. And then the director need to hand over the resignation letter or accept appointment. And the company must submit COR 39 form with minutes of the meeting or resolution taken to change directors. And then the form, the COR 39, and the resolution of minutes must also reflect the same information as I've already indicated before. You don't have to mix a removal and resignation on one application, because this creates confusion because we don't know precisely whether you want to remove or you want to resign. So you need to be specific on the application and the resolution or the minutes of the meeting that has been taken. Then let's move to disqualification of a director. This one, a court must make an order declaring a person to be disqualified. And then a person may be disqualified on the grounds of misconduct involving dishonesty or has been convicted in any court of law for theft or fraud. And then a disqualified person must not be appointed or elected as a director of a company or consent to be appointed or elected as a director, which means that if the director knows that I have been disqualified, he is not expected to accept any appointment in any company because of that disqualification status. Or the company may not knowingly appoint a person who has been disqualified because that person needs to serve a certain period before he can be fully rehabilitated and appointed again to become a director again. So, but when the person has been rehabilitated, we will need the court order. The same as applies when the person is disqualified. So we will get the court order from court so that we can list that person at a CIPC list of disqualified directors. So we need to record that person on our records. And then when that person has been fully rehabilitated after a certain period of disqualification, then that person, the court order will also be required to reinstate that person again as a qualified director. So we have the processing times. I know that whenever people submit the application, they expect the response. So we have the processing times on the manual applications, which is 5 days turnaround time on the manual ones. And then on the e-services applications, where we don't expect any agent processing, it's 3 days business time. And then customers are encouraged to transact via e-services because this is much quicker and convenient process that also eliminates spelling errors. Because remember, you are the one who need to complete the transaction on e-services. And then if there is an error that has been committed, you cannot expect CIPC to come and rectify your mistakes. So you will have to refile another application in order to correct the mistakes that were committed in the previous application. So we can only deal with the errors that has been done by the system, whereby, for example, you have indicated on the CR39 form that Director A has resigned, but after the application has been processed, Director A is still listed as active director. So those are the system errors that can be corrected at CIPC because it is not your fault. It is the system error. And then that one we can correct so that we can change the status of that director. But if maybe the mistake has been committed by the customer, you captured the surname incorrectly, or maybe you put in the appointment date wrong, or you captured the address incorrectly, then you cannot expect CIPC to correct that one after you have received the certificate. Then you will have to submit another application to correct that mistakes. And then when you come to the manual application, that is where we can take full responsibility because we are the ones who captured the information. You gave us the information that so and so has resigned or has been appointed on this date, and then we captured the date incorrectly. Then that mistake needs to be rectified by the office, not by the client, because the client provided the right information and then unfortunately it was captured incorrectly. So I've also attached some of the practice notices that they're also available from the website that they can assist you whenever you want to submit the application so that you don't get a rejection. We have this practice note of #1 of 2019, whereby we expect that the directors need to sign the resolution before you submit it to CIPC, or the attendance register need to be submitted to ensure who were in the meeting. Because the reason is that after we process the application, somebody may come back and say, no, but I was not in the meeting. I saw that I've been resigned or I've been removed from the company. So that is the reason why we need all the directors to sign the resolution to avoid such kind of complaints at a later stage. And then we also have this notice to customers of that deal with the retracking or resubmission of rejected application. Because once the application has been rejected, especially the e-services application with the tracking number on top, you cannot resubmit the same tracking number again because the system only reads the tracking number once. So if you resubmit it for the second time after it has been rejected, the system will not be able to read that tracking number, which means that what you need to do after you get the query, you need to capture a new application, and then you will get a new tracking number, and then you comply with the query that was issued. If maybe you didn't attach the ID copy of the resigning director, for example, then you will have to attach that ID copy together with all the supporting documents. Don't only respond to the query and omit another application because it will lead to another query. Then it will be a brand new transaction with all the supporting documents, including the one that was not previously submitted. And then after you have done so, then you will submit your email. If it's a CR39, then you will send it to eServices CR39 email address. And then we also have this other notice, that the one that deals with the removal of directors, section 71 of Companies Act. So if you can read through, because I cannot go through each and every item here, but I think some of the issues here, I have already touched them. But for your interest's sake and for your compliance, you can go through this notice, practice notice number 40 of 2015, whenever you transact with CIPC in order to avoid unnecessary queries. And then we also have this notice number 74 of 2018 that also deal with the removal of directors by the shareholders. So then you will have to go through and so that you can understand who is taking the resolution, because when the removal is taken or the resolution is taken by the shareholders, then there are several things that you need to submit, like the shareholder certificate, because we don't have a record of shareholders at CIPC. So we need to know who took the resolution. If you have indicated on the resolution that the resolution was taken by the shareholders, but if the resolution was taken by the board, then we will need the attendance register of those board members, because those are the directors of the company. So you can also read this practice note for your compliance purposes. And then I think that was the last slide. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have now come to the end of the presentation, and we would like to now move into questions and answers session. And then we'll start with the questions on the charts. So the first question on the chart is, in case of a director disappear and we don't know how to find that person, the contact details are not working, he is staying in different province, and there is no one we can contact and get the person, and we want to remove the director because he is no way to be found, what do we do? We can't even process bank transaction because that person is a check signature. What must we do? Over to you, Mr. Lebete.
Yeah, in case where the director is untraceable and then is not taking part in the day-to-day running of the company, and then the company cannot be held to a ransom because they need to run the business, but you find that because of the absence of that person, they are not able to finalize some of the transactions. So that person can be, in order to take him out of the company, then you will have to provide an affidavit stating the reasons why you cannot provide the ID copies of that person, because maybe that person cannot be located, so that we can keep that in mind when we process the application, that this person is nowhere to be found and then they want to remove this person. And then we will use an affidavit as the document that even tomorrow we can say, when you come back, that how did I get out of the company? Then we can show the submitted affidavit that these guys, they have tried to locate you, but to no avail. That is why they finally submitted this affidavit to CIPC together with the CR39 application to take you out of the company. I'm not sure if I've answered it correctly or to your satisfaction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levete. The second question is, I am requesting the email where we send documents. But just a reminder again, the email address are also available on the presentation and even on our website under directors changes. We'll also make available this presentation. It will be made available on the CIPC website. You can go to CIPC website and then on our homepage, click on webinars. That's where you will find this presentation, and we will also make it available on CIPC Facebook. So let's move to another question. It reads as follows. I have a question. We have processed a director amendment. However, mistakenly, we have resigned both directors. So now no directors reflect on the registration document. How do we add the current directors back onto the registration documents? Over to you, Mr. Levete.
So the director mistakenly remove or resign all the directors from the company's records, which means that the company has got no director. Now they also need to appoint another director. Is that correct? So I think what you need to do here, you will have to submit the manual CR39 because you cannot do the online if there are no directors. Then you will have to complete manual CR39, and then you will complete the details of all those directors as well as their statuses to show that this one has been appointed, and then we will capture all those directors on our records. And then in future now you can be able to transact on e-services because the directors will be there on the record. But as for now, you will have to submit the manual CR39 form.
Can the CIPC share more details on where to the practice note 17? So I don't know if you recall that. Maybe if you give us a detail because we cannot remember all the notice numbers because they issue lots of notices. We need to know which notice are you referring to. So if you can share more detail, then we'll try to answer your question. Where a director is deceased and was a sole member. So even this one, just over to you, Mr. Levete.
Okay, if I understood you correctly, they said the director was it was a sole director and then he's deceased. Is that the case? So now they want to know how maybe to proceed maybe with the appointment. If the director was the sole director and then he dies, no one remains in the company. So what will happen is that it will depend whether the director was a shareholder or was only a director. But if he was wearing two caps, the one for a director and the one for a shareholder, then there will need to be an executor who must be appointed to come and manage the estate of the deceased. So that person will have the duty to ensure that the replacement or the appointment of directors is done in the company because he's the one who is managing the estate of the company. But in a situation where you find the director was only a director, not a shareholder, but he passes on, then the remaining shareholders will have the duty to appoint the new director, because remember, the shareholders are the owners of the company and the directors are employees who are employed by the shareholders. So if the director has been employed by the shareholders and then he or she dies, the shareholders will have to appoint another director. But if a director is a sole director and then is also a shareholder, then an executor will have to be appointed to come and manage the estate of the company. That will also include the appointment of a new director.
Thank you, Mr. Levete. And our last question on the chart is, what if one director wishes to resign? The other director does not wish to sign the resolution acknowledging resignation. What is?
Yeah, remember that directors are appointed by the company and are also removed by the company, or they resign from the company. So if the director wants to resign from the company, what he needs to do is to submit is to hand over a resignation letter to the company that he or she is pulling out as a director. And then the company has about 10 business days to complete and submit necessary documents to CIPC to resign that person as the director. So if the company fails to comply with that, the director who wants to resign has got the duty to approach CIPC, whereby the compliance unit at CIPC will have to send the letter of compliance to the company to submit necessary documents, because there is a vacancy that existed in the company, and then the company is not responding in terms of resigning the person who handed over the resignation letter to the company. So you don't need to worry. What you need to do is to hand over your resignation letter to the company, and then the company has got the duty to submit relevant documents, including the resolution, because we are not expecting you to sign the resolution. Those directors who are remaining in the company, they will have to submit their signed resolution confirming that you have resigned. But if they fail to do so, then after 10 days, then you have the right to approach CIPC that you have resigned from the company, but the company is not submitting necessary documents to resign you. Then the compliance unit will have to communicate or deal with that company so that they need to comply, because this is just a compliance issue from the company side.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levete. And then I see that the time is not on our side. We're left only with 10 minutes, and then just to wrap up. And then I also see that there's a follow-up question from Kasima, and we'll ask Mr. Levete to just to answer you on the chat, just to give us that date. And then let's just quickly move to give the opportunity to other people to ask questions. So please put up your hand, and then I'll unmute you. And then after asking a question, please just mute it again, just to allow other people, so that Musa, please ask your question.
Thanks, Mashudu. Just a clarity-seeking question. When you were presenting, you said that the certified ID of the customer agent is only required if you are doing a manual submission. However, my experience is such that even when you are transacting through e-services, if you have not put the customer agent's certified ID, the submission gets rejected. Can you perhaps clarify there? Thanks. I'll mute. I'll listen.
Yeah, thank you so much for raising that point. I was not aware of that, but I think those are some of the issues that we need to handle in the office to ensure that people get correct response from CIPC. I'm not sure why maybe such kind of application was rejected due to the omission of the ID copy of the owner of the customer code, because we only need that ID copy on manual applications. When you transact online, you use the customer code and the password. That is why we don't need the ID copy of the owner of the customer code. So if maybe you come across such kind of a query, then you are welcome to escalate it to me so that I can deal with that to ensure that you get the best service.
Thank you, Mr. Levete. Another question? Maybe Mr. Levete just address this question of Karishima. I think it's just a follow-up on where they actually removed mistakenly removed all the directors. And then she wants to know, please advise if we use the initial appointment date, or will the appointment date be the current date of appointment?
Okay, thank you so much, Karishma. When you have to restore those people, you will have to restore them with the previous dates of their appointments, not the current date. If the director maybe, for example, was appointed in January, and then now you find that you mistakenly remove all those directors from the system now in March, and then now you want to submit the manual application, then you will have to indicate their original appointment dates on the CR39 form. You don't need to use the current date of March when you submit the application. So the previous appointment date will still apply when you restore them back into the system.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levete. And then now come to the end of the presentation or this webinar. And then I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our colleagues from CIPC, in particular Levete and Elma, for putting this presentation or webinar together. And we also like to thank all our participants for joining this webinar today. We hope it was of value to you and that you join us again for future webinars. With that said, I am now officially closing this webinar. Thank you and goodbye.